Okay. So one of the things Adam said to me at lunch, and he made the comment, he said, Jim Compton often says, we're not looking for a handout, we're looking for a hand up. And one of the jobs we have at CMPA is to help our members get a hand up, to open doors, not to tell people what to do once they go through those doors, but just to open them. And maybe just a thought that, you know, in the world of karma, maybe it's sometimes when we get frustrated about the fact that doors don't open like we'd like them to, we need to ask ourselves the question, you know, are our back doors locked? Anyways, Adam, thank you. You said you were going to speak with your heart, and you did, and we're better for that. Let me get back to housekeeping. It's a little hard, but I will. So we're going to move into this afternoon session. We're going to stay, those of you who are interested in the Promoting Canada to the World panel, there is a plenary panel that will happen in there. And for those of you who'd like to learn more about learning how to build a business to help your company grow, we invite you to head to the Governor General's Ballroom, where Jonathan Olsberg will be doing a workshop with Camille Baudouin and Eric Rebalkin from Mosaic Entertainment. And they'll be working on a step-by-step process to explore how their production company can develop new business strategies that will result in greater sustainability. So as our guests make the way to the stage in this plenary room, we'd again like to welcome the participants join us by live streaming, brought to you by the Canada Media Fund. There will be a question and answer session during this panel discussion. Delegates and online participants can send their questions to us by hashtag capital P, capital T, small I, capital O. And of course, delegates can also go old school and step up to the mics placed in the room. The importance of promotion has been given great emphasis by key industry players such as the CRTC, Chair, Telefilm, and the CMF. But what are we really talking about when we talk about promotion and how we can work together to grow our audiences at home and abroad? This session is sponsored by ION Canada, an industry-wide initiative to inspire online conversation about TV, film, and digital productions, that we all care about. So we'd like to welcome as our moderator, Karen Thorne-Stone, President and CEO of the Ontario Media Development Corporation. The OMDC is responsible for stimulating investment and job creation in all of Ontario's creative industries, including book and magazine publishing, music, film, television, and interactive digital media. Karen is also a former film commissioner for Toronto and executive director of the Economic Development. She is very passionate about what she does, I know that for sure, and we'd like to welcome her now to introduce our panel this afternoon. Thanks, Karen.
Thanks, Michael. This panel has the unfortunate placement to have to follow Adam, and I'm not sure it's actually possible to do that, so we're going to take a slightly different tact. I think we'll start right off the top by thanking Michael and Marguerite and the whole CMPA team for putting together an amazing program at this year's conference, and yeah. We're certainly going to try not to let you down on this panel. As you can see from the board above me, the team is a pretty strong one that you'll be hearing from today. On the end, Scott Henderson, who is VP of Communications at Bell Media, and next to him, Francesca Accinelli, who's the new Director of National Promotions and Communications at Telefilm. And beside Fran is Naveen Prasad, who you probably all know as Executive VP and General Manager at Elevation Pictures. Alex Raffé, never one to be, quiet. Alex is going to be the the counterpoint on today's panel. She's VP of Production at Thunderbird Films, and immediately to my right is Bill Cooper, who's the Chief Operating Officer at 2010 Group. And for those of you who may not know Bill, 2010 Group was responsible for the public engagement campaign leading into the 2010 Olympics, including Own the Podium. So that's his perspective coming to today's panel. I'm not going to try to give the resumes of this amazing group because there just isn't time, but I certainly encourage you to take a look at the app for the conference, because you'll see that they've got a tremendous amount of combined experience that they're bringing to this conversation today. So with that, I think let's get started. The premise for this conversation today is that our CRTC chair recently has been talking about the need to move from protectionist strategies to promotion strategies in trying to build and grow our industry. So I guess the big question sort of at the heart of our conversation today is, can promotion in fact replace regulation in trying to encourage industry growth? And if it can, what does it look like? And maybe we'll start with the what does it look like question. So I'm going to put Naveen on the spot to kick us off.
Thank you. It's a question that we all are thinking about, because there's, everybody calls it a shift, but it's not a shift. It's over. It's a new world. And so how are we going to protect ourselves as distributors and content producers? I would say first and foremost that the key way of promoting content, Canadian content, is funding. I mean, you can't separate the two. People say it's either funding or we should just go for straight ahead promotion, let the market prevail, which is fine. And I'm not suggesting that it can't be that. But for the independent film community and television community, I think it's key. If we're going to have great talent come out of this country, we're going to need the support to fund them. Otherwise, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. We won't have Canadian content to promote, pure and simple. We'll still work, we'll still go and do the things we want to try to do, but we're not going to be promoting emerging Canadians unless they move to places where there's a better opportunity for them.
Okay, thanks. Alex, do you want to tag in on what your perspective is on promoting Canada?
I don't really understand how to promote a concept. I know how to promote an individual project. 100 years ago, when I was a little younger, we went to Cannes with a little movie Telefilm we put $100,000 into, and they basically completely ignored it. It was a sort of a semi-political decision, and we were only too happy to have the money. But I remember Linda B standing on the beach with me at Cannes, and they had all these approvals to do this, that, and the other, and Linda B saying, do whatever the fuck you want. We've got more out of that $100,000 than if we'd spent 5 times as much on promotion, because your film worked. And your film worked in a public forum, and Canada loves it when their stuff works out there. We're very proud when our things work out there. Not so proud when they're only working at home, but when somebody out there says, bought your television series, bought your film, bought your actress wins an award, or is noticed, that promotes Brand Canada, that promotes the individual project, but also Brand Canada. But I don't understand how you promote a concept like Brand Canada. I'm very sorry, Fran.
Well, so there's a perfect
I'm wearing my
segue.
happy socks. I'm wearing my happy socks so that, I'm not going to be nasty.
There have been some early attempts, some early strategies to try to, I think, promote Brand Canada, and Ion Canada is certainly one of those, with, I think, mixed reaction and mixed response so far. So, Fran, your new role includes trying to make this thing work. Tell us.
I feel like I'm going to be the total Pollyanna here.
No, but tell us what the goal is and how you think you'll.
So there are multiple goals. In terms of Ion Canada, it started as a social media movement, and we started with the industry to actually make the industry understand that we don't even know ourselves what each of us is doing. So having that hashtag and be able to follow it, we started to actually really identify how many successes there are. Like, this is an incredible period of time in Canada. The type of content that we have, we are getting acclamations worldwide. Our television, digital media films, they're being sold worldwide. The world knows Canada, like I love the title, but the world actually knows Canada. Canadians don't know Canada.
Yeah, that's true.
So now, the Ion Canada site was launched on Sunday during the Canadian Screen Awards. And the hope is that is going to be the first, maybe second place that people around the world, including Canadians, are going to go to learn about the shows, the television shows, the films, and the digital content that we create. From that, the eventual hope is it will spawn off to wherever that content lives. So it's meant to be a neutral, we'll call it Switzerland, a neutral place where everyone can have their content, where everyone can share their content. It's not meant to compete, it's meant to be a partner and to engage. And that's a big part, I think, in terms of what Telefilm is trying to do, and we have done, is we're going to continue to try and find ways to partner with, as we've done with OMDC, we've done with Bell Media, we're going to continue to find ways to partner. And I mean, I hope you and we do partner. Don't look at me that way. We do.
You're really setting this up well, Fran. You know you're going to be totally barraged with
I think it's a great, look, I think it's a great start. And I know
Well, here's the thing.
Okay.
Ion Canada needs some promotion. Who knew that this website launched on Sunday?
I did.
I didn't.
So yes, you're
But
right.
only because I was on the panel.
Yeah.
So seriously, Scott, that's a good opportunity for you to tag in. Is this strategy going to work?
Are you going to promote it for
What will
me?
it take to make it work?
Don't worry, it's great.
Well, specifically with respect to Ion Canada and promotion in general, and going back to what Alex is talking about, and we'll hear from Bill about Brand Canada, I don't believe that we should promote a show, a particular project, content as being Canadian. We need to promote it as being good. And by doing that, that's how we're going to get viewers and people watching on TV. Now, with respect to that, once we do create great content, it makes sense for us to take some credit for it, which I think is what Ion Canada is kind of trying to do.
That's it.
But there's some challenges with respect to it so far, in that it's kind of existing in isolation. And part of what I want to talk about here today is partnerships and collaboration. And if Ion Canada is to be successful, then we need everybody to kind of join together to make it successful.
Can you sign this right now?
So this sounds like a good opportunity to bring Bill into the conversation. You've got a whole lot of success with, you have experience with tremendously successful campaigns around public engagement and in the Olympic world specifically. So what are the keys to success, and are there some lessons that we can apply in our media space?
Well, I think some of the core learnings we had, and I was a bit player in a very large movement, but the key learnings we had is that we made a promise that was an articulate promise that consumers could relate to. And some of the promises around the games were, it was Canada's games, and we took the torch relay to, within an hour or two of 98% of Canadians, and we really brought the games to them and tried to fulfill that promise. And we made a promise through On the Podium of having a high-performing Canadian team. And we did our best. Well, I didn't do anything. The athletes did it. But we tried to open the doors, as someone was saying earlier, to make sure the athletes had the opportunity, the freedom to succeed. And so we fulfilled that promise. So the learning, if you strip it down, is that I think we need to understand what the brand promise is of Canadian content, or Ion Canada. What is this promise we're making? Ensure the consumers are listening, so we have to make a promise that they will respond to that is relevant to them. And then here's the tough part, we actually have to fulfill the promise. Yeah. And I think we are. I'm naive to the industry because I'm sort of the outsider looking in, but it strikes me that we're having phenomenal success in all sorts of different areas. It's just, are we telling the story effectively?
I think we are, but we're telling the stories in multiple silos. So I think it goes to Scott's, comment that what we need to do is we need to start speaking more and collaborating and stop seeing each other as the enemy, for lack of a better word. I think there are ways that we can all work together. So I'm on a mission. Canada's turning 150 in 2017, and I'm asking now, what are people doing? Because imagine, this is my Pollyanna moment, but imagine if all of us somehow collaborated together in some synergy so that all of Canada could celebrate together and we all had a similar voice. I'm not saying we have to have the exact same voice, but imagine that. And that's what happens during the Olympics.
Yeah.
That is the voice. There is a voice of, thank you. But that's, you know, so I am going to be using sports as a way. We don't have, well, we do have the Screen Awards, and maybe that's where we need to start rallying up. But we have all these little, you know, distinct moments, and we don't ever kind of come together in one moment of unison. And that is what we need to do. I want us to stop being sorry that we are so great. We are such an apologetic nation, and we wait for other people to give us acclamation. We wait for a film to win a prize in Cannes, you know. And Carole heard this story that a filmmaker had just won a prize in Cannes. They come back and they're waiting. Where are their fans? Right. You know, where are the people? But they're out there. I mean, you look with all your shows.
But going back though to like feeling sorry for ourselves, like, and the whole crux of this conversation is, do we promote Canadian? And my answer is we absolutely do, and we don't take any credit for it. So, you know, with respect to bringing everybody together to do it, I think there's still, as great as we promote Canadian now, there's still room to grow, of course. And I think you're right with the Academy and the Canadian Screen Awards. We saw this year for the first time, all conventional networks actually do on-screen crawls nominated for so many CSA awards in advance leading up to the CBC broadcast. Yep. We've partnered, all the networks have partnered together to do a fan zone that started 3 years ago. And this year had 400 or 500 people lined up, a huge line down the Eaton Centre to see their Canadian stars. So this stuff is actually happening right now, and we should take some credit for it. But the question is, how do we do it a little bit more?
Well, and I wonder whether that's representative of Canada broadly, or if we're sort of preaching to the choir with things like the Screen Awards. So, you know, we recognize that internationally Canada is well known and our content is well known, but a whole lot less so at home. And it seems to me that in the Olympic movement, I would argue, despite the tremendous job that 2010 Group did, the athletic movement has a bit of a head start because Canadians generally have a pride in their teams and in our teams and our athletes, Maple Leafs aside. But I'm not so sure that that's the case for the average Canadian with respect to screen content. I think that there's still a sense, to some extent, that Canadian content is plain vanilla, it's low quality, and it's broccoli that's good for you, but not.
Can I argue a little bit that I'm not, without going into professional sport, and we're using the Olympics as an example here. Amateur sport didn't have the notoriety. I mean, they struggled to get on TV, and they struggle outside of the Olympic window, the 17 days itself, to enjoy public support or public enthusiasm. And I think what the interesting thing that has happened, somewhat through strategy, some through luck, is that the people who are the foundation of the story have come through. Canada was not crying out for a notable skeleton racer 5 years ago. They weren't crying out for John Montgomery, but when they met him and they saw him succeed, they fell in love with him. And what the Canadian Olympic Committee's response to that was to stop calling themselves the Canadian Olympic Committee. 10 years ago, they were called the Canadian Olympic Committee, and no one in Canada cared until the team was out of games. Now they're called the Canadian Olympic Team, and the athlete is in the middle, and the people are in the middle. And I think that the propulsion of that brand is very much on the shoulders of the people. It's not so much that it's Canadian, it's that it's Canadians that are building that brand.
So maybe that's key. What is the brand that we're trying to promote? And I think that's where some of you were going earlier.
I don't know why we're trying to promote a Canadian brand. Like, what's the point? Does any other country promote their brand in that way?
No,
I'm sorry.
But let's be realistic. The
very...
industry propped up by tax dollars, and if the people that pay the taxes don't give a shit, you care.
But they do give a shit. They watch.
I know they do.
That's the point.
Is
Is CTV best off talking about the shows, the Canadian shows that they have, to say, watch it, this is a great Canadian show, or based on the fact that it's also got a simulcast with a U.S. partner? That's the stuff that we should be focusing on. That's the content that I want to see us create. And then we can be proud as an industry because we know that. just because my mom doesn't know that it's Canadian, right? We are supporting an industry. And it's
My mom
not
doesn't
about.
even know what I do.
It's,
Yeah, but don't you think, so here's what I love. I love watching a show, thinking it's a great show, and then I find out how many Canadians are in it, and for me, it's the icing on the cake. So based on the research that the Telefilm has done, it is clear that people don't say, I'm gonna watch a Canadian film. They look and say, today I wanna watch whatever, a horror film, and then, hey, maybe their third or fourth or fifth choice might be Canadian, but it's always gonna start with what mood are they in, who's in it. So for me, and Telefilm, part of the focus is, our job isn't to necessarily promote the films. What we want to do is promote the talent. So imagine then, if Canadians really know the talent, and I think there are, eTalk and, Entertainment Tonight, and The Social, there are all these vehicles to promote the talent. There are things that I think are missing that I keep looking to the Quebec market. We don't have kind of late night talk show where people get to know the way that the amateur Olympians, it was the same thing. You have to find vehicles for Canadians to get to know the talent. When you look at, God, I hope I'm gonna get in trouble. Like you look at the cover of a Chatelaine or Elle, it's very rare that there is a Canadian on it or that they're using talent within it. So, and I'm not saying it has to be brand Canada, but there has to be accessibility. And I was at that fan zone with the 400 people, and it was remarkable, but most of them, John Montgomery aside, who is amazing, most of them were going to see the kids because they connect with their fans really well.
But those, yes, they do connect with their fans really well. I mean, we've done 2 shows now, and I remember when we started the first one, talking to the folk at Chorus, we weren't allowed to expense a social media manager under the then CMF rules. I always thought that was lovely. So we hired a social media manager, and we had somebody who was dealing with all this stuff and capturing stuff and putting stuff out, and and the kids responded, and that was wonderful, and then everybody started doing it, and then it didn't work anymore because everybody's doing it. It's all corporate messages. So the lovely thing about the kids is it changes and changes and changes, and what you did last season doesn't work this season because the kids have moved on, And there's something terrific about the Charlies and the Coltons and these young kids in Harrison with their YouTube channels and their I Can Do This channels and the songs they make up and they're everywhere, which is why they have fans.
But I think they're
They're where
fans.
the kids are.
There are amazing fans. When you look at the Saving Hope fans, Rookie Blue, there are fans out there.
Yeah.
What I don't know is how many other Canadians know how many fans are out there. Because there are fans. I have seen the fans. I have talked to the fans. So part of what I need to do, in particular now with film under my mandate, is how do I build that excitement up around the independent, film community? So you're going to help me.
So,
Yeah.
so if we all, it sounds like everyone sort of generally agrees that people are not looking for Canadian content. They're looking for great content that happens to be Canadian. So then what's the vision? What is the brand? What's the thing we're trying to promote?
I think there's as I said earlier, we would never promote a show as being Canadian. We'd promote it as being good. But once we get people there, I think you're right, Fran, and there may be a problem with people actually recognizing that it is Canadian, and there may be opportunities as a result of that. One example that has been driving me nuts for the past little bit is that people don't think that Orphan Black is Canadian because it's so good. They think it's too good to be Canadian, to tell you the truth. And I was dealing with a reporter yesterday about this, and they just think it's a BBC America show that's shot in Toronto, when it isn't. It's like Canadian. And so once we get people there, then there may be opportunities to actually let them know it's Canadian. And I in Canada may actually do that because I kind of think that the future of how people find content is going to be discoverability and curation. So we would never, just because somebody loves Saving Hope, we would never want to send them to watch Rookie Blue, but you might.
Yes.
Because if they like Saving
There's
Hope.
something strange about that. Curation is about taking an opinion about quality and content. And as a government organization, I suspect that's probably very hard for you
But
to
I
say
think, I
some
would
shows are
say
better
in
than
terms
others.
of Ion Canada, that's not what it's going to be. It is a neutral space that everyone can be part of. and you can actually upload your own content and make it. We want it to be something that this industry uses to connect with the public. That's the ultimate hope. You know, we want the public to get more excited
So
as we are.
we want to tell the public something, so we're asking the public to go and look.
Naveen, do you want in on this?
I can.
That's
I
passive.
think there's,
You want me to be?
Sorry.
I can be aggressive.
there's,
I know you can be aggressive.
Yes, you can.
there's promotion and then there's celebrating. Promotion is to drive awareness.
That's a good point.
Yes.
And celebrating is something that we should do when we do good things. I think, and I'm a feature film distributor, you're a television series distributor. The content relies on us of investing dollars, investing time and energy to get it out to the public. We're businesses based on economics, and if we can't do that, right, it's either we've done a bad job or just the content didn't register.
Which happens.
Which happens, and we buy on script. We help work with production companies to deliver films that we believe are going to be the ones that are going to break through. We have a big one coming out that we're going to put a lot of money towards, and I know you're going to help us with that too. This fall called High in a Road, plug, Paul Gross. $16 million production budget. $16 million production budget, and it's a homegrown story. It's about the Canadians. I mean, that to me is promoting or celebrating, rather, we're celebrating. And we're going to, but the money that we put to it is promotion. And I don't think you could ever substitute, let's talk about it and let's tweet about it and make sure that we have a website that so that people will then go see the movie. No, we need to spend the right dollars to compete with the rest of the content that's out there. Otherwise, our content doesn't get seen.
So then what's the right way you can help, Bill? Like, what is the right way to, please help, but what's the right way to connect? I know.
I'm glad you asked, because I just wanted to throw up kind of an amber flag. And as I hear us talking, we're very we-oriented. I mean, this is what our industry needs, and we want to promote Canada to the world because we want our content. And that's typically where brands go terribly wrong, is when they become about themselves and they forget the consumer. And so I think we really need to orient the discussion to what's going to motivate a consumer to want that information, to watch that show, to be loyal to that brand. And so I think that just because we're building a website or just because we're building a brand and it has an industry motivation behind it, doesn't make that relevant to me as a consumer. I need to be told, you know, I want to want your information. And to want your information has to be synonymous with how I digest and consume media. So if it's the powerful storylines, if we look at the big advertisers out there today, like Red Bull and P&G, and, you know, they're not selling their product about how good it tastes or how clean the soap makes your laundry, or they're selling brand stories now. And they're trying to make those stories relevant to the consumer, try and play into a pre-existing appetite the consumer already has. We were talking at lunch about the example of P&G around the Olympics and how they didn't tell a story about the Olympics, they told a story about moms. And it was passionately embraced by consumers. So they plugged into a pre-existing appetite of consumers. So all of that long diatribe to say that I think ION Canada or initiatives like it need to be very consumer-oriented and make sure you're creating information and data that the consumer wants to consume, and then figure out how it can move your business objectives forward as an industry.
I'm glad you said that, because Telefilm's just engaged an agency to help us with that, because, you know, working with consumers is something new. And we are now exploring what is that on the podium. Like, what can we do that will help us, along with the industry, give something to the industry. It won't promote Telefilm. This is an umbrella. It's the dairy, you know, the Dairy Board of Canada. Something that can sit as an umbrella that whoever wants to, I hope everyone wants to, comes underneath it, and we build that, whatever it is. But so, yeah, because I think you're right, that we need to learn how to speak to consumers, because we've been speaking to the industry. You know how to speak to consumers.
Scott, you were
thank you
talking
for-
earlier about partnerships and the
I
importance of
feel like I
partnerships.
like you
and-
too much right now. I don't know.
I'm liking it.
I'm interested in who's responsible for what in this puzzle? What are the roles, and how do you see those partnerships working?
Well, I think the easy answer is that we're all responsible. Like every element of the industry, every partner, every participant in the industry needs to take some ownership and responsibility for working together. And I think that partnerships may be the opportunity, like ION Canada should be a partnership between Telefilm and CMF and film.
CMPA, yeah.
Right.
Film.
And so the Canadian Screen Awards is another example of partnerships, how people can, from all elements of the industry, including rival broadcasters, can work together to elevate the industry, but more importantly, as Bill was saying, to reach the consumer. So Bell Media is a heavily involved and a strong supporter of the Canadian Screen Awards and the Academy. And part of that is to recognize the great work that everybody in this room does, but also a bigger part of it for us is to, and which is something that we've been kind of pushing for, is to reach consumers. So I'm just wondering if like Bill would actually see own the podium, winning an Olympic medal with winning a Canadian Screen Award, and then what can happen after that?
Well, I think what can happen after that is like you're seeing with John Montgomery, like his personality, his persona came known at a moment. You know, we set the table for him, and he succeeded. And then there was a sustained interest in his personality as long as he kept a dialogue going. Right. And now you can see where his career has gone, and he's got that sustained dialogue. So we need to identify stories that we think will resonate with consumers, and then we need to stay committed to them. You know, we need to sort of perpetuate that story and keep it going. I mean, it's like establishing a strong website, as an example, and then forgetting to add content to it for the next few months and watching it collapse. I mean, you have to be constantly feeding the fire. So we got to choose good stories, and then we have to stay committed to them and keep adding fuel to the fire. That would be
But
one
who
big.
helped John keep that? Like, who helped him sustain? Like, if we're looking at, like, if I'm focused on talent now, and talent's gonna go where talent goes, so who then helps that talent maintain that visibility, that voice along the way? Was it like the Canadian Olympic team? What was
Canadian, no, I mean, he surrounded himself with agents and marketing experts who helped him propel his brand and tell his story on an ongoing basis. And I'm already too far into the weeds because I don't know John Montgomery that well. I just chose him as my iconic example, but
He's doing okay.
Yeah, he's doing okay. And he
He had a
had
long lineup
agents
at the
who
fan
helped
zone.
him propel his story and keep his story going. There are plenty of other athletes who succeeded in the 2010 games who have completely fallen off the radar. There's many of those athletes who medaled. I'm sure this room probably couldn't even name them all, even if we put our collective memory to them. And that's just a function of their story stopped being told, and then they fell out of the consumer consciousness.
Alex, do your actors? Sorry, I'm taking more for. But do
You
your
are, yes.
do your actors?
Alex was
It's a
trying to get a
valid
word in here, so
question.
let's let her do
Do your
that.
actors have, outside of an agent, do you engage them with people that either really help them with their social media presence, with their walking down,
There's
being in a
a
fan
lot of
zone?
conversation about it on a show, especially with the kids and the kids' mums, of trying to drive the balance between the stories that we and our broadcaster own and the stories that you own. And so we do a lot of guidance at the beginning and help support them and help do stuff like that. They get pretty savvy pretty quickly about understanding where the line is and what's appropriate and what's not. They keep it up. They all have their own dialogues with their fans. It's very hard when the show is over. And I found it very hard on, we did 80 episodes of Mr. Young, which was huge. Kids couldn't walk into a coffee shop without getting mobbed in Vancouver. And then it's over. And they go back to school. And they would show up on Friday nights on the new show, and it's sort of like, this is really awkward. I feel so bad. Some of them really did keep their profile up. We didn't. Like, we supported the show all the way through its various iterations, and its launch in Disney and, you know, all Cartoon Network and all that stuff, but we've moved on to the next one. So they're kind of on their own. And of course, a lot of kids don't make the transition from a kid's career in acting to an adult career in acting. So there's a lot of taffy about trying to keep them grounded and schooled and things like that, because
I wonder if what Bill is describing is this elusive star system that we keep saying.
But there was
we need
something
in
wonderful
Canada.
about the Olympic, the Own the Podium, which was the understanding that these were ordinary people with talents, and they worked their asses off. The drive and the hope and the dream. And so we got them before the Olympics, and we kind of bought into their dream. And I think that's part of why that worked so well. They were, you know, account manager from Winnipeg, and you know, what they do in their spare time. And oh, she practices 10 hours a day, and he holds down a job and then does this in the evening. It was like, wow, it's not like it came easy. And somehow our business is so easy. Like, oh, you're a star. Oh, whoopee-doo, you know. Your instant overnight success after 25 years in the theater kind of thing. But we don't have any of that. We don't have that story. It's all a very superficial, let's get rich and go to Hollywood kind of thing. And I don't think that's as profound a sort of a feeling. I've always felt that the campaigns ought to be, you know, this guy, he's your neighbor, he's a grip, he's your, you know, she's your child's teacher, she's a tutor on set. Like the enormity, the fact that there's not a person in this country who doesn't know somebody quite well, who doesn't earn their living in
So
our
it's
business.
not just
So
the
there's
on-screen
this
talent.
enormous machine, and I think there's just, we have to find a way to make it not feel frivolous, and all the, you know, the producers driving limos and all the crud that, you know, Canada makes crap, and the occasional political remarks that get made for nefarious reasons, I'm sure. But there is no feeling, there is no visceral connection between what we do and the common man. And that's kind of, I think, part of it. It looks like a frivolous life.
But, I mean,
It is a frivolous life, okay? Did you drink too much last night? I drank too much last night.
is drinking, is that a bad barometer?
It's a barometer, yes.
Is it?
Definitely it's a
Okay.
barometer, yes.
Well, I mean, we might have been story rich with these fantastic athletes that, you know, did remarkable things, but at the end of the day, there are a lot of industry sectors out there, and this is one where people are working tremendously hard and doing phenomenal things. It's about bringing their story to life, and I think one of the things I learned working on the games is I had a lot of ideas that got left on the cutting room floor, to use the expression in this industry. I'm sure that just didn't fly, and we stayed true to a few ideas that were our brand promise. You know, there were a lot of people around that didn't believe in the red mittens. A lot of people, when we suggested that didn't believe it would work. When we suggested the red mittens, HBC only agreed to make 250,000 of them. I'm not sure how many million they've made since, but they made a lot more than 250,000. So they didn't believe, but we stayed true to that, you know, that brand promise, which was we wanted to put a piece of the torch relay into the hands of millions of Canadians in an affordable manner, and $10 mittens achieved that. And we stayed true to that brand promise. So I think, you know, this dialogue it's a bit like a squash court. We're going back and forth between themes, which is probably indicative of how we're struggling to articulate the brand. We need to stay true to the brand, and then the stories of those amazing producers and actors will rise up within that brand.
But we splinter almost immediately within the brands. I mean, Adam just made the most amazingly emotional speech. And it's totally real issue about the Aboriginal place in this. We've got, you know, half of Vancouver seems to be up in arms these days about, excuse me, do we have women up there? I mean, we have so many, below this, we have 943 messages. I don't think we have a brand. You know, I make kids shows, you make this show, you do that, we do science fiction. It's like,
But I wonder if we can find some common ground. I wonder if we can find
most
an
of us come from
overarching-
somewhere else. I think that's the common ground. Honestly,
I
geographically.
mean, I'm thinking back to what Scott was saying earlier about everyone has a role in this, which is tremendous, but it seems to me if we don't coordinate ourselves in some way, we're all going in different directions.
But
and
it's
I-
about identity. This is exactly what you were just saying, though. It's about the brand and staying on message to the brand. Like,
careful,
all these other
So
things are
can we
good.
find that common thread? I'm going to go to Naveen and then down to Scott.
I keep on going back to it's that specific show or movie. That is the brand. You don't want to. You're not talking like you can't compare. You can't put it all together and say this is what we're trying to promote. Create a brand. They're all unique. They're stories, and they're great stories, and you got to celebrate that and create the brand off the stories.
Okay.
I mean, everybody says that, the best content starts with the script, and absolutely. So stay with that brand and leave that to be the brand. And then all the talk
You've
about.
been paid to say that by the Writers Guild, haven't you?
Pardon me?
You were paid to say that by the Writers Guild, weren't you?
No, I wasn't. But I'll take money if somebody's paying.
So the promise is Canada makes great content, some version of that.
Well, what it would add to that is that the notion of Canadian content being promoted should be talking about Canadian content being celebrated. Just stick with the content, market that, promote that, and that's the brand.
Yeah, I'm not sure there needs to be a common thread or even a common brand, but there should be a common purpose. Like we all, as I was saying earlier, we all have a role and responsibility in supporting one another with respect to promoting Canadian content. Like eTalk did a whole half-hour special on Monday night for the Canadian Screen Awards. It was 100% Canadian Screen Awards content about a show that had aired the night before on the CBC. So, and it turned out getting close to 700,000 viewers. So there is an appetite for people to tune in to see that and to celebrate it. So going back to this whole thing about the elusive Canadian star system, there is a star system in Canada. I don't know why people keep on saying that. We do it every day. At least we do.
I can. So how do we measure success?
I want to say that, sorry, I wanted to
Go
comment on one of the earlier comments, is that I would not want this industry to use all those divergent stakeholder groups and storylines as an excuse to not adhere to a brand promise. And I think when we use the term brand, people start to feel claustrophobic that that's somehow going to limit. And I don't think a brand needs to be that. A brand is not a logo. A brand is it's a much bigger articulation. It's a voice. It's a promise. And I think that whether you point to the Olympic movement or whether you point to P&G or Canadian Tire, they are coherent master brands. And when you walk into a Canadian Tire, there's a lot of stakeholder groups because you can go from household items to compressors pretty quickly. So they managed to shepherd a brand, a master brand. And I think we could have a master brand that is consumer relevant, inspires consumer enthusiasm because it somehow speaks to a set of qualities and compelling promises that motivates them to tune in, that would not cause you to abandon stakeholder groups like First Nations or women or whatever it might be.
I think we have to create a brand promise, but I think you start with what's your noble purpose, and that goes to what yours, you're talking about. What is our noble purpose? And our noble purpose is to celebrate Canadian talent, all Canadian talent, but also what I feel, if we compare sports, the value proposition that I do think, to your point, Alex, that Canadians don't have a real concept necessarily of how hard it is, how hard this talent works, how long someone might work on a film. It could be years. We don't have vehicles for them to talk about that either. We don't have, outside of, eTalk and ET, we don't necessarily have a place. There's no nighttime talk show that people can sit around and have a conversation. So where do they do that? Where are they able to share that story? So that's part of it, because it is. You're right.
Years ago, we used to have filmmakers in schools and things like that. Remember the early days?
There still is. Real Canada goes around. Well, Real Canada goes around, and they show films, and when they can, and when talent makes themselves available. And I use talent loosely, but writers, directors,
we always
actors.
use talent loosely.
I know. I'm just Telefilm talent. It's great. But we do have people out there.
But those things were tremendous. I always know I remember going to my daughter's kindergarten, the what do you do for a living thing. I was like, Mama, would you come? And we'd been making an animated preschool show for Treehouse. was a co-production with Australia and Singapore. And I remember sitting there with my computer, and we did this little, I got the guys to do this little thing of like, this is the sketch, and then this is the in-betweening, this is how it goes. So it was this little piece that sort of went from a poor storyboard to the finished 3D color. And I asked the question, I said to the kids in the school, I said, so how many of you watch Zigbee? Well, they all put their hands up. My daughter vibrated with pride, she's like 6. And it's like, okay, so this is what we do. We make things, it was like, that was amazing. Like, your mother makes that? Like, that was somehow, that's like a real show. It's like, yeah, I make real shows.
It's like a real show.
But it is extraordinary when you do that. It's extraordinary when you go and talk to schools. It's extraordinary. We've had a lot of, because it's unusual making sitcoms in Canada, or it was, certainly unusual making them in Burnaby, we had a lot of people come through. We've had actors, we've done workshops, we've brought people in, and people are astonished. It's become the birthday party venue. You and 20 of your close personal 10-year-old friends can come out to the show for the evening, and you have your cake, and we give the pizza, and Dave does his stand-up routine all evening, keeping them amused while we do take-out to take-out to take-out to take. And it's like, wow, there's an entire world of munchkins in Burnaby that going to a TV show has become destination one. They never knew anything about it, and they see how hard the kids work. And
So it's recognition then. Part of what you're talking
it's
about.
comprehension.
But that
It's
moment that you were
comprehension.
there, you had a moment where you were recognized and you felt valued in terms of the work. And it just propels you, right? The moment that you go, oh my God, they actually see that I have done this, you make this connection.
Well, I felt very
That's what
proud
the
of
amateur
my-
athletes must have felt when they have that moment, when people would come up to them who
There's the
never would have
connection.
recognized them before and had that moment. I mean,
Yeah, I
watching
think-
the people many of the actors on the red carpet, you can see they haven't had those moments. They need to have more. We all need to have more of those moments. There's nothing better than someone saying, job well done, congratulate. Nothing is better. And I feel, and we're creating such amazing content.
But I think a lot of people just haven't got the faintest idea which content. We don't exactly have the least permeable border in the universe. Never mind before all the borders fell down, we got over the top. So I mean, even like since I started this, there was no, nobody had a clue what was or was not Canadian. I still think that's true. Nobody has a clue what is or what isn't Canadian. I'm not sure, and I think they think these are good projects. These are terrific shows. People watch the Flashpoints. People watch the Rookie Blues. People loved Endgame. It's like all these sort of stylish motif, all these stylish, smart shows that for grown-ups that reflected it, that were absolutely baked into the warp and woof of our cities, like proudly. You know, seeing, and I always remember as an Englishwoman, every time I'd see a movie in the theater in the 80s when we were making films, and there was like a London bus in it, I'd get this sort of like little like, you know, yeah, I know that. That's where I come from. And I think Canadians do get that from seeing their cities and their places, but I'm not sure that they know that they're Canadian shows.
So I guess the question then is it important for them to know that?
It depends what we're trying to do.
Right.
I know what I try and do is I'm trying to promote my show,
Right.
so that my
And
show,
we're trying to get more
that's,
viewers.
and that is always a partnership with the broadcaster. That's the creation of materials, the common understanding of what you're doing all the way through, what you're collecting, what you're prepping, and how you're thinking about it, and the digital and everything else you do. And that's totally focused. It's so clean because it's focused. We know exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to get people to tune in on Thursday night at 9. Period.
But that's
what
what
you're
I'm trying to
saying
help.
is so
We want everyone to
amorphous.
view things.
I don't know how to grapple with the objective. I don't know if it's like, okay, in 2 years' time we are we 150?
We
I don't think
are.
I was quite that old. But if in 2 years' time it's about saying, holy fuck, we're Canadian, let's stand up and be so bloody proud of
I
all
want the
these
Molson
things.
beer fridge. That is the feeling I want. When you
Molson beer
watch
fridge.
that video and they're singing to it and
you've
it
got your
opens
passport.
up, that is the feeling I want Canada to feel and Canadians to feel about this
My
industry.
But
My passport will get you a beer. That's what you want, okay.
Sorry to be
Yes.
repetitive, but I, aside from I'm sure you're parched, and that's why you want the fridge, but the people around it are probably motivating your interest in it,
It
right?
is.
And you have milestone moments in your industry where you recognize accomplishment from the various awards and things like you do. Going back to the sport example, when there's a milestone moment, whether it's airing the Super Bowl or whether it's the Olympic Games or, Stanley Cup playoffs, there are weeks of pre-programming that talk about the people involved. I don't know, maybe it's a naive comment, but I don't ever remember having watched preparatory information about the people who are being nominated for that award in 2 weeks. I mean, as a Joe consumer, I just watch the award show and I'm a little bit put off that these well-to-do people are patting themselves on their back. That's kind of my knee-jerk reaction. And so if I was prepped with the texture of what these people do and how hard they work, like I am with athletes, maybe as a consumer, I'd embrace them more.
In the broadcast this year, they actually made a concerted effort to do that. They actually described where people were from, a little bit of their background. It wasn't just like the name. They tried to provide context so viewers at home could relate to them.
Did
But
you
that's
do stuff
one of the
on
reasons
eTalk,
that
though?
Charlie did so well at the Meet the Press, because she was a graduate before she came on Sam Assembly. She was a graduate of Chorus's Next Star.
Yeah.
So week in, week out, she won. Week in, week out, she was in people's living rooms. And so they owned her. That, they've been rooting for her. They've been. But that's what you're talking about. It's knowing somebody. It's different.
It strikes me, though, from all of this conversation today, we still haven't answered the question about why.
I know.
What does success look
broccoli.
like? Is the goal to
Success
have
looks
people
like
have those warm, wonderful
2
moments on
million
a red
viewers on a
carpet?
Thursday night on
2
does.
million
It looks
viewers.
a lot like
nice
that.
big
Well, there you
box
go.
office. That's
So if that's what this is about, if at the end of the day it's about viewership and it's about box office, then we need to be putting our strategies together in that context. And I'm not sure that all of the promotional things we're talking about today will automatically lead to that.
I think that's why we all need to keep talking, so
Yeah.
that we can find that and work together or build on something. I start something, or Scott does, and then we build on it. But in the end, the ultimate goal is viewership. We want people to be watching. Whether you promote it as Canadian, maybe that's not, I don't think necessarily it's the right strategy. But if there's
Now you're
that,
changing your mind.
but if there's that,
Good.
Yes.
but if there's that sweet moment, oh man.
But it is also, it's
Thank you, Alex.
it's nation building, right? Being proud of our athletes, being proud of our politicians,
Still
being proud of our filmmakers or our musicians or our authors or our wines. It's about what are the things that bind us together coast to coast, right? That's partly what's in there, and I have no idea how you articulate that, but civilizations don't happen without that feeling.
And the call to action is simply watch. Is that-
And the call to action is what?
It is watch.
Have your mind blown away. Watch this.
To our audience, we're 5 minutes or so away from taking your questions, so gear up if you have some burning. But I want to circle
Reynolds
us
is
back
not here, I hope he doesn't want
to where we started, which is that sort of odd question actually, that seems to be brewing these days about promotion versus regulation.
False dichotomy.
So I'm interested in your perspective on that. Can we have one without the other? Is this grand promotion thing we're talking about actually going to be effective in building an industry in the sense that it can replace regulation? Let's talk about that for a minute, because I fear we may be heading down a road that won't work.
Well,
I'll be brief.
Is that-
Yeah, I think
Naveen
yes,
and-
no.
that was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was nice and succinct. I like that one. What he said.
Scott, you want to comment? He's biting his tongue.
No, I'm not biting my tongue at all. I think clearly less regulation is a light approach to regulation is our mantra in the way we approach everything. But it just still seems like forced promotion just seems strange to me, because why wouldn't you want to make the most amount of people go see your movie or watch your TV show that you've worked so hard to make? So to me, it just, promotion, as I've been trying to say, is already happening because it needs to happen, and because it's an element in the success of how people watch TV.
But is it the case with the proximity of Canada and the US and the relative size of those markets that promotion alone isn't going to do it, if there isn't if we're not forcing time on our airwaves and so on, that U.S. content is going to take over?
I think you have to understand the regulation is obviously going to change because the landscape's changing, and it's not just about a North America. The geography is becoming less and less meaningful, and somewhere along the way, I mean, I am not advocating that we abandon regulation, but I do recognize that you can regulate so far, and consumers don't give a shit. They can do what they want. Everybody's cheating and VPNing and do whatever they want. You're not going to stop that. So regulation is going to diminish over time. There's no question about it. Our industry is changing over time. The big clamor with 1,000,001 over-the-top services starting up, I can't even keep up with the international sort of pockets of things. The big noise out there of all of this stuff is also going to, I think it's going to do a black hole. So we're talking about promotion in the context of unbelievably well-heeled major corporations with multinational reach shouting about their particular thing. It's very naive to think that somehow this little Canadian film's going to win out in that noise.
Without a doubt, like the volume of fantastic content, as everybody's heard all day today, is becoming increasing rapidly. So
which is why I talked about curation.
Right.
The essential thing about curation is there's too much. And as a consumer, I want somebody to help sift that. I don't want an unobjective.
But I think you already have that. That's what broadcasters, I'm not going to say
We do
that
currently,
Netflix
but
is.
it's changing. We do currently, yes.
So that's kind of like, that's exactly right. The role of promotion moving forward needs to be, how do we stand out in the midst of this onslaught of enormous content and make sure that people are getting the right places that they need to be. Like, although I've been saying we do promotion, it is hard. It is really hard. It requires a lot of resources, and it's going to get harder for Canadian projects as we move forward.
And as we heard this morning, and I completely agree, there's going to be an awful lot of good product that doesn't connect because people didn't know it was there.
Right.
So promotion is actually almost turning into a bigger and more complicated hill in that next 10-year scenario than regulation, which we know which way regulation's going.
My answer to that would be parroting the consensus, but to bring in the term sustainability, and I would say that it sounds to me like promotion is the much more sustainable solution. I mean, I think protectionism obviously has its place, but it has to shift regularly to adapt to, modernization and all the different environmental factors. Whereas your investment in promotion and building the brand and building the brand reputation and as a result the consumer loyalty is much more sustainable.
And when you think about it, promotion, what the brand is. Oh, Meryl Streep's a brand. Agoyan's a brand. I mean, it's the thing that makes you say, "Oh, I like the last one. I'd like another one." Whether it's an actor, whether it's a writer, whether it's a director, whether it's a broadcaster, whether it's an HBO, whether it's we have so many nesting layers of brands. The idea of sort of promotion is somehow going to be, well, you're going to turn into Meryl Streep if we promote, Fran enough. She can turn into Meryl Streep, and you can raise millions from the market.
Fabulous.
Is that what's supposed
That's
to happen?
great.
Do you like that one? Okay, excellent.
Let's
promote Fran.
Let's talk with our audience. I've got a couple of questions here coming in from Twitter, although it's coming to me on a regular old piece of paper. And if there's anyone that's got questions in the room, make your way to a microphone. In fact, I was going to ask earlier, and it didn't fit in, whether or not there are sort of other industries that we should be looking at as models, and it seems this question is along that line, which is, what is the Canada Reads model for film and television? Anyone want to
All I
take that
can
on?
say is I've heard some discussions being done that there might be a Canada Watches happening that would help, I would say, the film industry to connect a bit more in the same way that Canada Reads did. I can't say more than that, except people are
She's
thinking.
on it. Apparently, she's on it.
I said too much.
Already said too much.
But I think that's great, right? It's a great vehicle for discussion and celebration right there.
Celebrate.
See? And I agree with you too. It's a happy panel.
We're all flip-flopping all over the place here. Yeah.
Should Eye on Canada be turfed? or rebooted.
We just rebooted.
This is a multiple choice
that's
question.
What Sunday was. We rebooted it.
You know what? It should evolve, is what it should do.
Thank you,
That's
Scott.
nice, Scott. So tell us how we do that.
Well, for one, you might
give
want
Francis.
to talk to the broadcasters. And I think the thing with Ion Canada is that it needs, again, it's operating in a silo. It needs to be more inclusive. It needs to bring everybody on board,
It
as we've
needs
been
money.
talking about.
It needs money.
I don't have any money. But it's really quite straightforward, really, if you ask me. It needs to be a concerted group effort if it's to succeed.
Which
good to
means
hear.
it needs to be not somewhere over there that you go and look at it. It needs to somehow move into something that our communications
Well, I think
use
that's
as a
what the
portal,
hope
and
is, right? That's
yeah,
the hope
but
is we all start
but
creating
that's-
this interconnectivity. Share, we should just share.
Being somewhat naive to all the dynamics that are leading to this animated panel.
You thought it was going to be boring.
Yeah, no, I never said that.
I'm learning a lot.
I was going to say that I would add, it has to be embraced. You know, if it's to be collectively exploited
Where's Maurice? He should be hearing this.
and leveraged, it has to be collectively embraced. And the brand promises that succeed across multiple stakeholder groups are the ones that are embraced, and the ones that fail are where all the stakeholder groups refuse to embrace the collective mandate and go off in silos. So.
At the risk of participating instead of moderating, my own observation about the reboot is that most of us didn't know about it, it seems to me that the people sitting here and the people sitting out there are the very ones that can help push this forward, and we need to be engaged if we're going to help engage consumers more broadly. So I think there's an opportunity there. I can't see out there. Are there questions? Maybe not. Okay,
Where's
well,
Ren-
I
Where's
saw
Reynolds
Ann
when you
Truman
need him?
clapping for that. Yes, I too think everyone should be involved.
yes.
It's been very hard, three
There's a
of us.
question.
This
a real-life
question is for Francesca.
Oh, hi. Hi, I didn't
hi.
promote you.
No, but I think, it's not just about promoting me, but there's a lot of, although I would
it really
like
is a lot
somebody to
about
promote me. There are a number of sites up that do promote Canadian content, and that I think part of what Francesca and I have talked about, because I'm launching a website this month called canscreen.ca, that is a grassroots approach to reaching out to audience for digital television, film, and short films, is that all of us need to communicate together and collaborate together to get the word out about the content that we're making in this country. And there's always been conversation from Telefilm about percentage of audiences that are engaged in our content versus foreign content and things like that. And I think that we are doing a really good job nationally through various websites and such, and things like eTalk and Entertainment Canada, to promote our own. People are paying more attention to Canadians that are in TV shows, feature films, and things like that. And I think a lot of us are now collaborating and working together to get the word out. And these sites are designed specifically for audience, not industry.
I'm not hearing the question yet, Abby.
Well,
That was the Reynolds
all I'm saying is
method.
I think that Ion Film is very, very important. It's also, in my mind, becoming a national archive for all the Canadian content that we're making, which I think is really, really important. That we do need an archive for all the stuff that we are making in this country, and that our kids and their kids will be able to go to something like Ion Canada to find out all the great stuff that we're making, and that in working with all the rest of us who are trying to get the word out, I think it's an important initiative that I completely support.
Thank you. I think the other thing that I didn't mention that really started happening in the fall is a number of our organizations, the CMPA, the Academy, the CMF, Telefilm First Weekend Club, we all started working together to help promote films in all the film festivals. So we would come together and we would find different ways that we could reach all of our own communities with the same messaging, so that it became a unified voice with all of us pushing it out. And what I would hope is that when we move into sort of the next festival season, which is a great time for the Canadian film industry to be able to connect with the public, that we'll, build that brand up more. And I think the only other thing that I'm looking at is Telefilm supports many initiatives all across Canada. So to your point, Bill, my hope is if I can figure out what that message is, I have a lot of people that we can push it to, because I can give every one of those festivals across Canada, every initiative that we do, that voice that we want to communicate. And, you know, I call it the, what is it, well of balsam, and they told two friends, and so on and so on and so on. That's, I mean, I think that's what we can do, but I have to figure out the noble purpose, the brand, or we do, or the people need to tell me, however it works. I guess the people are going to tell me what they want, and
I think you should hire Bill, is what you should.
I think you should have.
Where were you, Bill?
But I think you need a catalyst event. You need a destination time. This sort of the amorphousness of the objective is defeating. It's sort of like the Olympics were an event at a date. And maybe there's something you can
2017.
fashion out of 2017.
I mean, I would
Bill's got
love
an
to get
answer for
started
you. We're
before
gonna-
that,
we're
but
gonna-
2017.
You know, to what he mentioned about us, like everybody working together and like combining forces, like, I mean, you know, it just occurred to me, like, you know, you support us,
Yeah.
but you guys don't have a relationship with necessarily with our publicity team.
It's true.
At the same time, the Canadian Screen Awards, it's a great opportunity to drive people to go see these films in theaters with nominations, but the way this it's set up, the films will have to already been released to be nominated. So essentially, we're not working together on timing and focus, and I think we could do a better job of that. Absolutely.
Yes.
I wanted to add a layer, which is not a bad segue from what you just said, which is I talked a little bit about brand coherence and making a brand promise and then staying loyal to it. There's another area where I and others like me have screwed up in the past and learnt from, which is where we've embarked on a little bit more interruption messaging and interruption advertising as opposed to being sensitive to consumer ritual. And as you go embark on building websites and, you know, telling stories that are motivated by your business objectives, don't abandon the consumer. Like, be mindful of what is their natural ritual. You know, what is their viewing experience? What are they doing anyway? Where's their pre-existing appetite? And how can you insert your messaging and your brand promise into those authentic locations? We sell sponsorship for Whistler Blackcomb, a ski mountain. And when we put branding and just interrupt someone's experience in a chairlift, it kind of stinks. It doesn't really reach an objective. But when
Well, they're already there.
but when we weave ourselves into their day and make ourselves part of their ritual with our commercial partners, we do a better job. So this year we introduced a thing with Nestle where in the slow zone, to encourage people to ski slow, we handed out turtles, the turtles slow zone. And what we did is we didn't manufacture something false. We enriched something that was already there. And so I think you want to find ways to tell this story, whatever the brand promise we all agree on is. Let's put it in natural intersections of where the consumer ritual is around viewing Canadian content. Let's not build a website over here, over in stage left, where they weren't planning on going anyway. Let's intercept their natural rituals with our messaging.
Yeah, you should hire him.
I see
Yeah, you
one
got
more.
Hire Bill.
Yeah, we've all agreed. Okay, up here. That's our strategy.
Fantastic story to tell.
You need a microphone so they
You
can
need,
catch
you
you on
need
the
to be
web.
at a mic, Val.
Stop, don't say anything, Val. People need
In
to
the
hear it
meantime, we
online.
have a question at a mic down in the
Oh
corner.
God, please don't be for me. Take
No,
one of the-
it's for everybody.
Okay.
I've been hearing an interesting tension, I think, between talking about, for example, film festivals all over the place, big screen awards, and I think what the Olympics did really, and that comparison with the Olympics, because I think that there was something that was really interesting done there, which was a large event, something that all of Canada could connect to, but that came to everybody's communities. It came to you where you lived. And it made me think a little bit about Corner Gas coming out in December and how they did some really interesting things about engaging their audiences and also going into communities and having special screenings. And I guess I don't really have a question, but maybe it's how do we find a balance? We're on the screen. Film and television is on the screen, so it's sort of, it's it's easy to think of, okay, well, we'll just reach them in their homes. We'll do technology. We'll have a website that'll promote it. But also making that connection, that in-person connection, or the connection, whether it's mittens, whether it's whatever, that makes it more personal, that brings Canadians around the idea of something rather than just something that they're passively watching, or the next show, or the next movie.
I think
Okay.
a lot of the individual shows do that, though. So,
I think
sorry,
they do.
Val,
We're going to let
please.
Val in.
No, I think we're done.
We'll give you the last word before we wrap up
I
here.
think
Oh,
we're
sorry.
done. My point was, Canada has an incredible success story. And that's the point, is telling that story. And it's through audience, it's through talent, it's through the success of what this industry does. And Alex has had clearly too much to drink last night. So the point of this whole thing is, you don't preempt the success of a show on a wonderful broadcaster or what a feature film distributor does. The point is, when you go to Canadian Tire, you notice Canadian Tire, but you don't really care that it's Canadian Tire because you're looking for something that's inside the store. And nobody's fussed that it's Canadian Tire. Canadians are proud of their content. They express that through viewing. They express that through watching. There's a lot of the stuff that Alex mentioned about the public image of the sector. But the point is, it's the content that will tell the story. And somehow, I think the Ion Canada branding question is, how can we get behind that story? It's not about feeding Canadians Canadian content because it's broccoli and it's good for you. That's an absolute recipe for disaster. But it's talking about the success of all the talent and having that embedded in the Canadian experience. It's owning the podium for Canadian culture. What is that? That's, I think, the struggle that we're trying to find. And the point of Bill's mittens are, when you go to Nova Scotia and you're walking on the beach and you find an elastic and it says made in Canada and it's this big and you don't know what the hell it is, and then you realize it's on the lobster claws so you don't get bit, you connect place to thing to product, and then you realize it's from Canada. This isn't about necessarily a country brand. That would be pretty hard to do, or telling people it's Canadian. The success should speak, and does, and has increasingly. So how do you get behind that? And you're right, if people didn't feel they knew, or it got launched and it was all a problem, well, then that can easily be fixed, but there has to be a willingness to do it. And I think we should hire Bill, because the mittens were a great success, and 98% of the country got behind that. And I don't agree it was because people were school teachers. It was because we were proud of the country and we wanted to be a part of something that was really exciting. And my God, if this industry can't take that story to the country and the world, I don't know who can. I'm done.
So you should hire.
I have to hire
You
Bill.
hire Val,
was,
and Val, you have to be on the next panel.
I was going to ask these guys to sort of wrap up with one commitment that they will make to move this forward, but we're out of time.
Oh, that's a
So I
shame.
encourage you all
You
to
know what,
turn to
Karen?
one another and make that.
Go for it.
All
Fast,
right,
though.
15
Everybody gets 30
seconds
seconds.
each.
Boom, boom,
What-
boom, boom, boom. Go.
15 seconds
I'll
each.
talk
What will
fast.
you do to help move this thing forward? Let's start with Scott.
I
and work our way
resolve to
back.
collaborate and partner.
Awesome.
Can I say the same? That's good.
Okay.
I resolve.
Naveen?
Results to continue to help greenlight films and television projects, get them to places outside of Canada.
I resolve to continue to strive to make better and better product.
Awesome. I don't know if I can make you.
I accept the job.
There you go. How's that for, and with 1-0, we're on time.
Brilliant.
All right.
Well
over to you.
done.
I just want to say that I was out with Alex Raffé for dinner the other night, and we bonded. We're friends, so don't pick on my friend.
Thank you, Michael.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Karen, and all of the panel. Much appreciated. So, the CMPA is a big supporter of promoting Canadian TV, film, and digital productions, and we hope after the CRTC decisions next week and afterwards that there'll still be some to make. So we actually do look forward to these new initiatives, new ideas, and more collaboration. I think collaboration is key in terms of selling the product, and the product at the end of the day is always going to be the shows and the talent. So thanks for listening, all of you, by live streaming. Our next live streaming session is tomorrow afternoon with Bell President Kevin Kroll at 1:20, so we'll see you then. And now we invite you to put on the Sugar Buzz with a networking break featuring a candy station sponsored by our friends at Crave TV. Yay, candy, I'm into that. I've got to go now. Somebody else can finish the reading off the teleprompter before everybody takes all the candy. Our next session is going to begin promptly at 3:30. So Jonathan Olsberg from the UK and his panel of experts will be looking at growing companies towards equity readiness and contained sustainability, and Governor General too. And I think that's really important because sustainability over the next few years is going to be critical to success. Without sustainability, it's going to be very hard to produce. So catch that. And in Government General 3, you will find TV and digital mutually beneficial partnerships, and a broadcaster, digital producer, and TV producer will negotiate a deal in real time. So that sounds like fun, but with a twist. They're going to have to walk a mile in each other's shoes in order to find the optimal partnership. So 2 good choices to finish the day, and then we'll see you back here for our final session at 4:30. So not quite finish the day. You'll finish the day in here. I expect you all back here at 4:30. Mark. Okay, everybody. Thank you very much. Enjoy the candy from Crave TV.